Hi, I'm Kelly from Klue Designs. Today I'm going to show you how to make a welted zipper pocket in a handbag pattern. Today we'll be working with the Sandra bag by Swoon Patterns. You can go ahead and go to the website and buy that pattern. It's a digital download. I'm going to need you to print out 2 copies of pattern C. I printed it out on 2 different colors cardstock just for demonstration purposes here, but you can go ahead and print that out on whatever material you prefer to work with. I'll need you to get your rotary cutter and your ruler. We're going to take this first pattern piece. You'll want to line it up on your mat. We're going to cut this piece at 3.5 inches from the top. So you'll line that up with your ruler. You want to make sure that the top is running along this 3.5 inch line, and you want to make sure that the side is even with the ruler here. You're going to take that rotary cutter and you're going to cut this pattern piece right on that line. This section we're going to throw away. You no longer need it. We're interested in this top piece, and right over here we're going to write fold, because when you cut your fabric, this section goes on the fold line. I need you to grab your next pattern piece. You're going to line it up on your mat. This one gets cut at 2.5 inches, so you'll line up your ruler with the top of this pattern piece at 2.5 inches, and you want to make sure that it's square right along the horizontal line. You're going to go ahead and cut this pattern piece. With this one, we're going to toss this piece away, and we're only interested in this bottom piece. You don't need to write fold on it because that is written right there on this panel piece. This is now your new template for cutting out your pattern for the back of the Sandra bag. You'll go ahead and cut that fabric out of the exterior fabric you wish to use from the pattern. You want to follow the directions as specified here on this page. You want to cut out, along with the fabric for this, the pocket panel as directed, and you want to put the interfacing on that. And you also want to grab a 6-inch zipper. Once you have that taken care of, why don't you go ahead and pause the video, get that done, and when you're ready to resume, just hit play. Now that you have your 2 exterior panel pieces, we're going to go ahead and mark a seam line that you'll be stitching. You're going to want to sew a 1/2 inch seam. So we'll go ahead and mark that. I'm using a Sharpie, just so you can see what I'm doing on camera. I really wouldn't do this on a handbag otherwise. The next lines you want to mark is 1 7/8 inches from each side. So you would go ahead and line that up with the pattern piece and just make a little dash here, and you want to do the same thing on this side. Right here. Now we want to put these 2 pieces together. I'm going to use a few clips to hold it in place. You're going to put these 2 right sides together. Put a couple of clips on it to hold the pieces in place while we go to sew them. And why don't you go ahead and mark your pieces, get them clipped together, pause this video, and when you're ready to start sewing, see me back here. Just hit play. Okay, now we're ready to sew this seam. We're going to sew it in 3 parts. I have Goodman Mara 70 loaded in the top and in the bobbin. I have a zipper foot loaded on the machine. You want to set your machine to about a 2.5 millimeter stitch. You want to line your fabric up in there so you can sew right on that seam line that we've drawn. It's a 1/2 inch seam that we're sewing. You want to put that needle down in the machine, hold on to your threads, and we're going to sew this seam straight to that line we put in at 1 7/8 of an inch. You want to stop right at that line, and we're going to back stitch until the end. Go all the way back. We're creating a double stitched seam right here in this section so it can withstand the use of opening and closing that zipper pocket. You want to take that off, cut the thread. Now you want to go to the other end, and we're going to sew the section of 1 7/8. Down here you have your seam line right there that we marked. Put your needle down, hold on to those thread tails, and we're going to sew right to that hash line we made at 1 7/8 of an inch. You're going to stop right on that line, and now we're going to back stitch the entire length of that seam to the end of the piece. Go ahead and cut those threads. And now we're going to stitch the center of this piece. You want to change your stitch length to the maximum length you can use on your machine. Mine is a 6 millimeter. You're going to line the piece up now just on the other side of that 1 7/8 inch. We're going to baste that center portion where the zipper will actually be installed. And this is just a very quick basting stitch. And there it is. You want to cut that thread, take it off. Now what we need to do is press this seam open. I also need you to take your pocket panel piece and you want to press over 1/4 inch on the short edge. And why don't you go ahead and pause this video, go do that, and when you're ready for the next step, just hit play. Now that you have the piece seam pressed open and you've pressed over 1/4 inch on your pocket panel piece, we're going to go ahead and mark the front of this piece with the seam lines that we'll be stitching to sew in the zipper. You want to go ahead and get a small ruler, and you want to line the edge of the piece up with that 1 7/8 of an inch, and we're going to draw a seam line right here. You're going to start at the top of the ruler. It's going to be 3/8 inch high from the seam line and 3/8 inch down from the seam line for a total of 3/4 of an inch. Let me mark that again. Here we go. Now I'm marking the front of this with a friction pen. If you're not familiar with them, this pen disappears when you iron it. So from this point, you really don't want to iron your piece or else this line will go away. Wait until the very end when we're done sewing the piece. So you want to line up this end. Now we're going to do the same line. You want it to be 1 7/8 of an inch in, and you want to draw a line 3/8 of an inch above the seam and below the seam. for a total of 3/4 of an inch. And there are those 2 hash lines. Then you want to line up your ruler over here at 3/8 of an inch. And we're going to connect these 2 lines. And you want to do the same thing on this side. This is exactly where the zipper will be installed. You want to turn your piece over now, and we're going to be working from the back. We're going to take our zipper and we're going to glue baste it in. You can use either liquid stitch, which is what I'm going to use because it shows up better on camera, or you could go ahead and use Beacon Fabric Tack, which is also an excellent product. You want to put a glue line right down here on the bottom, keeping those hash lines in view that we drew on the back. And you want to put another line right up here. And we're going to go ahead and put our zipper in. You want to make sure that the zipper pull is going to be inside the zipper area, so that way when we cut it open from the front, you'll be able to access that zipper pull. I'm going to move mine down just a little bit more. You want to just tuck it right in there, and you want to line these edges up and press them right into that glue, right on that line. This way it doesn't move when we're working with it. All right, that looks really good. I'm very happy with that. Now the next thing you want to do is working with the bottom section of the zipper. You want to draw another glue line within that zipper section. Here's our hash mark still in that purple ink that we put on. And you want to put a glue line all through here. All right, now you're going to grab your pocket panel and you want to place your pocket panel down, center it in those hash lines. You want that folded edge to the glue. Make sure it's down a bit from that pull, because when you're working your zipper, you don't want it to get caught on your pocket. So you want to make sure it's right out of that path. Press it down a little bit. Now we have to let this dry, and then we'll go ahead and start stitching in the zipper in the pocket from the front. So why don't you go ahead and pause the video, go ahead and do the steps that I've just shown you, and when you're ready to start sewing, just hit play. Okay, now we're going to sew our first stitch line, which will sew in the bottom of the zipper and this portion of the pocket right there. We're going to sew it from the front. I want you to go ahead and set your stitch length to somewhere about 3.5. You're going to put your piece in the machine. Working with the zipper foot, you want to drop that needle right at the intersection of the bottom line and the side line. Make sure you have a bit of a tail. You want to hold on to those threads when we start stitching, and you're going to stitch the entire bottom line. Now you just want to take a little care here when you get near your zipper pull. If it gives you a bit of trouble, you can always just slide it down a little bit and get it out of the way of your foot. I think I'm going to be good, so I'm just going to go ahead and go forward. You're going to stop right at that intersection of the end of the horizontal line and that vertical line. You want to get your needle up. You want to pull the piece out, giving yourself a bit of a tail, and you want to cut these threads. Now we're going to come over to the mat, and I'm going to show you how to pull up that thread from the front of the bag to the back here. And we're going to go ahead and make a knot. That way you don't see any back stitching from the front, since the stitches there would be quite obvious. What you want to do is grab that back thread and just give it a yank. And if you look right here, that little bit of thread popped right up. You can go ahead and take a pin and just work it to the front here. Pull it right on up. Okay, now I have both pieces. You just go ahead and tie it off. Right here, put it through, do one more, put that right through, and give it a good tug. There we go. Now we'll come over and do the next side. You just pull that piece right up. There's that top thread. You want to grab that and pull it right to the back of the bag. Go ahead and grab the two pieces and just tie a quick knot into them. Like this. One more time. Secure those threads. Then we're going to come in and snip them short. Just like that. I want you to grab your glue. You're going to put a tiny little dab on your finger. Just like that. Just touch that knot. Touch this other knot with the glue. There we go. And you just let that dry. So go ahead and pause the video. Do that step. Secure your knots. Let them dry with the glue. And when you're ready to pick up, just hit play. So now that we have the first line stitched, we're going to go ahead and glue in the pocket panel right up here to close off that pocket. So you're going to take your glue and put in a nice glue line right here. And you're going to take your pocket panel, fold it up, and line up those raw edges right there, keeping everything nice and square for your pocket. Go ahead and press that down there. Hold it in place, nice into the glue, and just allow that to dry. So go ahead and pause the video. Get this glued in place, allow it to dry, and when you're ready to sew the final seam lines, just hit play. Okay, now that we have the top portion of the pocket panel glued in place, we're going to go ahead and stitch this last bit of the zipper pocket. We're going to start in this corner, and we're going to sew all the way around, and we're going to end at this corner here. You want to load this in your machine. We're using the exact same stitch length. You've got your zipper foot on. You want to leave a bit of a tail again. Go ahead and line that needle up perfectly with that stitch that you have there already. Drop that needle right in. you want to grab those tails and you just want to sew that little bit of that line, and you're going to stop right at the intersection, and you're going to pivot that piece, and you're going to sew straight down. Take care when you get near your zipper pull. My machine's handling it fine. And you're going to sew this line right here. Okay, where? One more stitch. There we go. Pivot your piece. I want to do just one more stitch. There we go. All right, pivot the piece, and we're going to sew that last line, closing off this zipper pocket. Okay, you want to take that needle up, remove your piece, leave a bit of a tail, because now we're going to come over to the mat, and we're going to pull up those threads like we did before and tie them off. Just pull that piece up, grab that thread and pull it to the back. There it is. You want to tie it off one more time. You want to do the same on this side. Grab that thread right there. Pull it to the back, grab them, tie them off. And we're going to snip them just like we did before. There we go. Got a dab of glue. And put it on those knots just to keep them locked in place. So why don't you go ahead and sew those last 3 lines, tie off your threads, glue them, pause the video, and then when you're ready to go on to the next step, just hit play. Okay, now that we have the zipper pocket in place, what we need to do is close off the sides of the zipper pocket. So what you want to do is fold your piece over, and we're going to sew about a 1/2 inch in on this side of the pocket to close it off. You want to load that on your machine. You still have your zipper foot on. I drop my needle down about 1/4 inch in. I'm going to reduce my stitch length just a little bit to about 3. And I'm going to take 1 stitch, and then I'm going to back stitch to lock those in place. Now we're going to stitch forward, and you just want to stitch the whole length of the piece, about 1/2 inch over, keeping the bag pattern out of your way. You don't want your stitches to get in there. You want to take a little care when we start to go over these zipper teeth. They're nylon, so they really shouldn't break your needle. Then when you get to the end, you want to back stitch again to lock them. Come forward, and you can just cut that thread right off. Now we want to do the other side the exact same way, except now we're going to start at the top of the pocket instead of the bottom. You want to load that on about 1/4 inch in. You want to drop that needle, take 1 stitch, back stitch to the end. Then you want to come on forward, taking care as you're riding over those zipper teeth And then just take it all the way down to the pocket. Okay, once we get to the end, we're going to go ahead and backstitch a couple stitches, bring it forward, and cut it off. Now the pocket is completely done. I'm going to go ahead and iron the front of my pocket with some steam to get rid of these friction pen lines that we have on here. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video, close off the sides of your pocket, and then go ahead and press that front with some steam to get rid of those lines. And then when you're done with that, hit play, and we'll pick up at the next step. Okay, we're in the final stretch here. All we need to do now is cut open this basting stitch so that we can expose the zipper. You want to go ahead and take your piece and just rip out one stitch. That's enough now for us to take this little red ball on your seam ripper and you put it down into the seam, but not through the zipper. This ball on here will keep you from hitting through that zipper. And you're just going to run it down that seam line, cutting those basting threads as we go. Be careful near the pull. There's my zipper pull right there. You don't want to damage it, and you just keep going. Let's go to the other side here and get those last few threads right here. There we go. And there's our zipper. You want to come in and just pull out these threads. I would, of course, take my care about it and use a tweezer to pull out these threads. But we can do that at a later date. And there's your zipper right there, working no problem. There's the pocket right there. There you go. And now I just want to show you how to make sure this piece now is exactly the size that you need to continue with the bag making process. This is pattern piece C, unaltered. It's directly from the pattern. You just take it and line it up right onto the piece and see how it fits. This is a half piece, so you can tell it's falling roughly on the half line. Everything is lining up beautifully. So I don't need to do anything to this piece to proceed further. If it were a little too big, you could go ahead and just trim that off. Or if it were a little short, when you go to sew in the rest of your seams, just scooch it a little bit to make up for that shortness that you have in your piece. I also want to show you a couple examples that you can see the differences between these pieces. This is the piece that I showed you in the front of the video. And you can see here that I did this with the same weight thread, but this is matching the fabric. So it's really not very noticeable. And I also top stitched up here to the edge, down here to the edge on each side. So that way it looks like a continuous top stitching across the horizontal of the bag, and you have these two top stitchings in the zipper versus this one, which is just your typical rectangle around a zipper. The next example I want to show you is a different bag that I made, and this is actually the bag that I figured out this technique for. And on this bag, I went ahead and used a top weight thread. This is a Gudeman Mara 30 weight, and I did just a rectangle of this in a contrasting thread, so that way the zipper really stood out against that bag. So there you have it. Here's your little piece with your exterior zipper pocket on your Sandra saddle bag. I'd like to know how it goes for you when you do it, and I would love to see the bags that you make. And let me know if you need anything else, or have any questions on how to proceed with this. Thank you for watching. Bye. Cut. How was that?